Master and I are gonna have words. He knows I hate clowns. God, I hate them. I hate them all. I hate Bozo, Ronald, Chuckles with their freaking dumb noses and their lousy party hats. I don't mind being short, fat, and ugly, but the pay sucks. What? Hey, easy with that face I'm eating. What does this remind you of, huh? No, naughty boy. Oops. A wet one. I hope I didn't stain my underwear. Look at that. Skid marks.
Get away from me, you freak!
Oh, coming from a monster that really hurts my feelings. Come back here, scrotum face. Not done with you yet.
Feels like my skin is about to explode.
That's just your viral necroplasm going through its larval stage. Move over. Pretty soon you're gonna get hair in funny places and you're gonna start thinking about girls. Getting a chubby studly? Come on, a half guy, semi.
Just get me to a hospital.
A hospital? Have you looked in the mirror lately, Burt Man walking? Even the entire cast of ER couldn't put you back together again. How do I put this to you? You're pushing up daisies, you're in permanent nap time, you're fertilizer. Hey, is any of this sinking in? You're dead. Dead. I guess 5 years feeding earthworms has eaten what little brain there was in there.
What are you?
But allow me to kickstart your memory. Hang on. These flashbacks can be killers.
You are the dead man.
See you in hell, Al.
Preparing the earth for your arrival, mister. A little death, a little destruction. Perfect marriage. Speaking of marriage, guess who's not your fiancé anymore? And the winners are Wanda and Terry. Multiplying like rabbits. And humping, and barking, and doing it, and liking it.
You stay away from her.
I don't want Wanda. I want you to take care of Win. And then you and the army can kick some angelic buttocks. And in return for your services, we'll get Wanda back for you. Heck, you can have everyone on the planet. Why settle for leftovers, huh? I like this. Now you kill me. Go ahead, son. You do it.
This is all some sadistic game of wins. And when I catch him, he's gonna wish he hadn't killed me when he had the chance.
That's it. That's the spirit. Just think of me as your guardian angel, the clown from hell. You're Jimmy Stewart, and I'm Clarence. Every time somebody farts, a demon catches her wings. Oops, twins.
Get away from me, you bunch-packing midget.
Oh, you still don't get it, do you, amnesia boy? We're gonna have to dig a little deeper.
What is this?
This is where old folks go after Florida, son. What is that you say? Can I dig up my body now? Why, certainly. Of course you can. And if you strike oil, half of it is mine. Start digging.
Hail Satan, Lord of all that we can see. In the name of Luther, be
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine, and with me today is Damon Thompson, returning guest. Damon, how you doing today?
I am fabulous. Hello, nerds. How you doing?
It's good having you back. It's tough finding time when we can have you on the show because our schedules are pretty incompatible, so we don't get to have you on as much as I'd like.
Yeah, it's I work irregular hours on top of us being half a world away. So
Yeah,
it's kind of what it is.
yeah.
But I thank you for having me back. I love it.
Well, I'm glad you wanted to come back, although not so psyched about the movie you picked for today, but we'll get into that in a little bit, because first I'd rather talk about something a little bit more pleasant, and that is lately I've been asking guests what's their thing that they've been interested in, what movies you've been watching, what TV shows are catching your interest, are you reading anything, are you playing any games, what has been interesting you lately?
I was gonna say something really terrible because I'll segue to what I actually want to talk about, but Morbius is on Netflix as of today, as we're recording. Today is the first day in Morbius, so I was gonna say that, but that's not true. She-Hulk. I've been really enjoying She-Hulk.
Yeah, I've been loving She-Hulk. New episode, day we're recording, I think there's a new episode coming out tonight, so I'm really looking forward to watching that tonight. But yeah, that I think it was the last episode. Was it episode 3? This is what I was really hoping this show would be, where it's just like, a legal comedy show with superheroes set in the Marvel universe. And that's what it seems like we're getting from this point on. So I love that. And I hope they continue with this. And it made me think, now that we're getting She-Hulk and it seems to be doing well, another thing I'd like to see them do is Doc Samson, right? Bring back the guy from The Incredible Hulk, who he played him in just like a few scenes, and have him just being like psychiatrist to the superheroes.
Ooh, that would be really cool.
That would be really cool too.
That would be really cool. Heck yeah. I'm sure you've seen the discourse around She-Hulk.
Oh, so ridiculous.
It's like, really, guys, calm down. It's supposed to be fun. And I went and looked. I've never read the comics.
Okay.
But I had heard about him, and I knew there was some. I didn't know about the fourth wall breaking, but that it didn't really take itself very seriously.
No.
And so I'm like, because they've changed so many other things already with the Marvel Cinematic Universe just to make things fit into the story that they want to tell. The things that people are griping about, I'm like, are such small stuff.
It's so ridiculous. I mean, come on. We had a whole movie with Fat Thor jokes, for crying out loud, and we had Tony pissing in his armor. So
right.
And
we had a dance.
Sorry, go on. Oh yeah, the dance off. Yeah, the dance off to save the universe.
So yeah, I think a little twerking won't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that was my favorite scene and I don't even care much about Megan Thee Stallion, but I just like that scene just had me rolling. It was so good.
And it looked like they were and it looks like, well, especially that scene, they looked like they were having so much fun.
Oh yeah.
It was just a celebration of just having a good time doing what they love to do, and something not a whole lot of people get to do.
Well, I think I saw something that Tatiana Maslany, probably mispronouncing your name, Tatiana Maslany, I think that's how her name is pronounced. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry about that. But I think I read something where she was saying that she is actually a huge fan of Megan Thee Stallion. So like that, so like being able to film that scene was so much fun for her.
Yeah, and she evidently can dance, so it was actually her in a mocap suit, and stuff. That's just fantastic.
And I think too, because she's such a big fan, it makes me wonder if the "I will kill for you" Megan Thee Stallion line was ad-libbed.
That's it's probably 50-50 at best. That's really cool. I didn't even think about that. That's really funny. Have you seen I have not seen these yet. I haven't had a chance to sit down, but have you seen Rings of Power yet?
No, I haven't. I'm not a big Lord of the Rings guy, to be honest. Like I saw the movies, they were okay, they were entertaining enough, and I own them, but I've only watched them like once since I bought them on DVD, and I never saw the Hobbit movies, so I was never really into those, and I I tried reading the books because a buddy of mine, he loved the books as a kid. And when I told him I'd only seen the movies, like, no, you have to read the books. You have to read the books. So I read the first book, struggled my way through it because it's freaking long and there's a lot of navel gazing in it. And then, when I get to the end, I was going to start reading the second book. And at that point I talked to him again. He's like, yes, when you told me you were reading the books, I had started to reread them. And after I read the first book, I realized, you know what? You don't need to read the books. You could just watch the movies. So at that point, I'm like, okay, so I'm done. I put the books aside then.
Whoo,
Yeah.
That's the bullet there.
Yeah.
My wife's a bigger fan than I am, so it was something in the zeitgeist, so I thought I'd ask.
So how did you like the episodes? Have you seen that?
I have not.
Oh, okay.
I have not. I've been trying to. I'm oddly enough, I have a hard time coordinating with my wife, and we're in the same house. So
yeah.
So it's just it's just one of those things, but we plan on getting around to it.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I've been interested in is I just picked up the Cowabunga collection, which is all the classic Ninja Turtles games on my PS4. And so I cracked that open yesterday and started playing that. And I'm not sure, are you a gamer at all, or were you a gamer in the past?
I was. I think I faded out probably PlayStation 2-ish time period. Like Tony Hawk Pro Skater was like my jam back in the day. I haven't really played so much since then. Okay.
It's funny you mentioned Tony Hawk because that was a free game offering for the PlayStation Plus. So I actually just downloaded that as well. I never played it, but it was free. So I'm like, why not? And anyway, have you ever played the original Nintendo Ninja Turtles games?
Yes, we have an emulator at the house that's got like 650 games on it. It's got that one. It's got the Tournament Fighters one. There's the one where, and I can't remember all the gameplay and titles.
There's so many of them. Yeah,
there's like 4 of them that we happen to have. But I haven't. I don't know what the rest of the Cowabunga collection.
Yeah. So it's like 17 games in total. Some of them are the same game on different systems. So they've got like the the Super Nintendo version of a game, the Sega version of the game. They've got like the Nintendo version of the arcade game, and they've got the actual arcade game. And I've got
let's go.
And I've got a recall box too. So I've got a big emulator system of my own. And so I've got most of these games already, but they come with all enhancements, improved graphics, and all that side to side. Might as well just buy the whole collection. But I was trying to play the original game, and some of the games, they have an option where you can put on God mode, and you could just, you don't lose any life or all that. They didn't do it with the original game though, and so I tried playing that again. It's just like, it is still so fucking hard.
The one on the original one on Nintendo.
Yeah,
man. Nintendo games were no joke back in the day.
No. I wonder how we got through our childhood without slitting our wrists, to be honest.
It forged strong-willed people is what it did. Between eating quarters at an arcade. I don't know if anybody remembers those.
Oh yeah.
And really hard-ass Nintendo games. We were gamers forged of steel.
I remember that the original arcade game, Ninja Turtles arcade game. Like summers, we go down to visit my grandparents in Florida, and there was this restaurant place they always like to go to. Their friends owned it, and they had the Ninja Turtles arcade game. So like I'd be in there, I just keep pumping in quarters and quarters, and then go and ask my grandmother for more quarters, just nonstop. Oh man, and and I was playing the Cowabunga collection. I was playing the Turtles in Time arcade version, and you can see how they bled us out of money because those enemies do not fucking stop. It's just relentless.
Yeah, I wonder how much it costs normally to beat those games.
I don't know. I don't even want to think of it. But like the Nintendo games where it was like 3 lives and then you're done. You have to go all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah,
no game saves, nothing.
Yeah, it was terrible, man. So mean.
All right. So that's pretty much what I've been interested in lately was that. But now I think we're going to get into the discussion.
Okay.
You brought this on yourself. You brought this to me. Just remember that. Just remember that.
Fair enough.
You offered like 3 times. You offered, and each time I'm like, "Are you sure?" And you're like, "Okay, yeah, I'm sure." So just remember, I gave you plenty of outs on this.
It's okay. Actually it was. But honestly, had I seen this in 1997, I didn't remember how old this was until I talked to a friend of mine yesterday because I thought it was like 2007 because I'm old.
No.
And he's like, he looks at me for a second. He goes, "Do you mean the one from 1997?" I'm like, "Oh, has it been that long? Oh my god!"
Yeah. It's been that long. Yeah.
Since I had such low expectations, because this is the first time I actually have ever seen this movie.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'd never seen it before. I
Okay.
knew of it, and it was so. I try not to waste my time with like universally panned movies. You know what I mean? I life's too short, and I tend to fall asleep in movies anyway. So I want to watch something I want to watch, or at least take a shot at.
Yeah.
And so I watched it, and with all the vitriol for this movie, I watched it. I was like, I kind of giggled through it, and it was like, eh. Now, if I had paid full price in 1997 for this movie, I'd have been hot. And I understand why people were hot.
Yeah. So we're talking about 1997 Spawn.
I should have mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah. Directed by Mark Aze Dippe, I think is how his name's pronounced. And this is the only theatrical movie he's ever directed. Everything else he's done has been like direct-to-video stuff, which you can understand why after seeing this movie.
And we can tell, yes.
Yeah. And but let's, before we jump in the movie, talk a little bit about the source material. Were you at all familiar with the Spawn comics? Were you a fan of the Spawn comics at all?
I bought. I think I was a bit of a fan. I wasn't like some things, like the things that were in the movie that were from the source material. I could tell where most of it deviated from. So I wouldn't call myself a super fan, but I knew enough about it.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was like right in the Image heyday thing.
Right.
I was in college and I had more money, so I could collect comics then. So yeah.
Okay, so you were in college when when Spawn hit big. Then you said
yes.
So like I was in when Spawn hit big. It was like 92, so I was still in elementary school, and then when I got to junior high is when when I got to junior high is. Funny story. The other day, I was teaching a movie in my class, and it came out in 2005. And I always ask my students when we go through a movie, I ask each of them what they thought of it. And one of the students, she's like, "Oh yeah," she's like, "This is an interesting movie because it came out in 2005, and that was the year I was born." I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
And another student, when I gave them the list of movies for this semester, he looked at the list. He's like, "Wow, these are old movies." I'm like, "They're all from like the early 2000s. What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, that's old."
My gosh. Oh God. Man, I said the other day I was I'm watching Triple X or something else, and I was like, "Oh, it wasn't that long ago. It was 2002." Then I stopped myself and went. And I did the math real quick. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's been really 20 years since that movie came out." It's wild, but yeah. So
there was a meme
nuts.
I saw like the other day, and it was on Twitter, and it was like 1975 to like 2005, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I got into Spawn when I was in junior high school. Bought some of the trades and stuff like that. They had the action figures, the McFarlane toys. Those, I think that was actually my entry point, was the toys.
Really?
Because those were because I was big in action figures, and they had these really super detailed toys. And they did something smart. With each toy you bought, it came packaged with a comic book.
Right on. So kind of like that. Now, was it a full size one, or?
Yeah, it was an issue of the regular comic book series, and it was tied to whatever that character was. So you got the basic Spawn figure, you got the first issue of Spawn, you got the medieval Spawn figure, you got the medieval Spawn issue that Neil Gaiman did. You got the Violator figure, you did that issue where Violator fights and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a really smart way of marketing it. I'm not sure how much that did, at least I think it was. I'm not sure how much it actually worked or not, because I know eventually they did stop doing that, but that was the thing they were doing for at least a little bit. And And I had picked up some of the trades, and they had like a bunch of the T-shirts and stuff. Because the big thing about Spawn was really the art, right? Because you read those. I'm not sure if you've gone back and read any of those books now, but I picked up one of the Comixology sales. They had the Spawn compendiums, which are like these massive trade paperbacks, and it's like 50 issues per book, per volume. And they were on sale for like, I don't know, like $15-20 or something like that. So I bought both the compendiums. So I've got the first 100 issues in these compendiums, and I read the first book. So I've gone through and I've reread issues 1 to 50. I haven't read the second one yet. And I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's a guilty pleasure, right? You're reading those books mainly for Todd McFarlane and later Greg Capullo's art. You're not really reading it so much for the writing, because the writing's not that great, but it's not offensively bad like, say, a Rob Liefeld.
Comics resident punching bag.
Yeah. It's not like that offensively bad. So I mean, it's not great. There are tons of plot holes and stuff you notice, and it's very much that early 90s, extreme style stuff, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be going back to it. It was a fun read. It's a fun guilty pleasure type of thing. So you're going in, even by the standards of the Spawn comics, which again aren't that great, this movie is still pretty bad.
Yeah.
So now you said you didn't see that, you only saw this movie recently. I saw it in the theater when it came out, because again, I was into that whole Spawn zeitgeist thing, and I was like maybe 14 when this movie came out, I think. And so that was right at the peak of my Spawn fandom. So I loved it the first time I saw it. And then as the years go on and I've gone back and I've rewatched it, I'm like, oh man, this is really fucking terrible.
It was, yeah. Yeah. I will say this. One of the things I really enjoyed, and I hope, and John
Leguizamo.
Yes, he was fantastic.
Yeah,
he chewed up he was just chewed up every bit of scenery in every scene he was in. He was the focal point for me watching it, which probably helped me get there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the prosthetics work on him was amazingly well done. Like I did, unless you look really closely and pay attention to his facial features, and if you're just looking at a picture, not hearing the voice, you could not tell that's John Leguizamo. Like, they did a really good job of covering him up. Yeah.
Yeah. If I didn't know that was him and was like looking for him, yeah, it was. I mean, especially like with the shots where he's, you can see his whole body, because there's a lot of close-ups. And but when
he had to
moving around and stuff,
because he had to actually be on his knees the whole time whenever he was in costume, when they did the full body shots, because he obviously to make the, so yeah, the entire time you see him in it, he's squatting down basically.
Yeah, he really threw it all in there too. What did I read? The scene where I really don't want to say this, but the scene where he eats the pizza with the maggots on or whatever.
Yeah, that was he actually ate those maggots. They were actually, and then he threw up right after the scene
right stopped. After. I'm like, oh, I was like, oh, we didn't have too many takes of that.
Oh Jesus, yeah. Another scene I saw, like, he had to go to the bathroom at one point, and it was taking too much time to take the suit off that he just ended up going in the suit.
Oh no. Oh, it's the worst.
Hopefully it was just number 1 and not number 2. But yeah, he was, and it's weird watching him in this, because his performance is good, but the material he has to work with is so bad. Like, it's just so 14. And again, when I was 14, I loved that humor, but looking at it now, I'm like, wow, this is really bad. It's really cheesy. But
yeah, it was. Yeah.
But he does a good job of selling it. I will say that. And he is the only person in the entire movie who looks like he's having a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. Martin Sheen. Yeah. Was that Martin Sheen?
That's Martin Sheen. Yeah.
Yeah. I've read that one of the reasons he took it is because he always wanted to be in a superhero movie. And that's what you get, I guess. But he was so over the top. I mean? Like, it was just so over the top. It was like Tommy Lee Jones is Two-Face bad.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, very much so.
Which actually, hold on.
Batman Forever came out, I think, about a year or 2 years before this.
Here it was 97. Batman and Robin came out that year.
Batman Robin was 97. Yeah,
was 97. Yeah, it came out the same year. Men in Black, and wait for it, your favorite, Steel, came out in 97 as well.
Yeah. Came out right after this, actually, I think.
Wow, that was a really tough time for superheroes.
Yeah,
boy.
Yeah. And ironically enough, I remember back at that time, Spawn was the movie that was the most well received that year. And then Steel, I think most people just didn't even pay attention to Steel. And then Batman and Robin was, the one that got vilified the most. Looking back on it now, Batman and Robin's actually the best movie of the bunch that came out that year.
Yeah.
But there is another Men in Black connection, though, because Will Smith was actually up for the role of Spawn. But he turned it down for Men in Black because he was worried that this would tarnish his squeaky clean image that he had at that time. Definitely a smart career move to choose Men in Black over this.
Absolutely. And it kind of evens out the fact that he turned down The Matrix. So
yeah.
The one that got me, though, there was a couple of them. There was quite a list of people who were up for this. Evidently, Denzel Washington was rumored to be up for it.
I wonder how true that was. If I wonder if that was just the thing, like they asked him just to see,
maybe,
and he just said no, because I don't think he would have ever given this movie serious consideration.
The other one, and this sounds believable, is Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson will do anything if there's a paycheck in it. So I definitely believe that. Wesley Snipes was also up for it too. I believe that too, because he did Blade came out I think the year after this.
From New Line as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was those were the same, same producer.
Same studios, yeah.
Studio, thank you.
But Martin Sheen is just when I go back and I rewatch this movie, because when I first saw it, I didn't know who Martin Sheen was. So going back and rewatching it now, and I'm just like, every now and then you see a movie that's just so bad, and you see one of these A-list actors, and you're just like, how the hell did you end up in this? I don't even understand how that works.
And he was A-list then. You know what I mean?
In the 90s, I think his career had a bit of a slowdown. I think he wasn't really doing a whole lot of stuff, because this was before The West Wing, 2 years before The West Wing. Imagine that he goes from this to doing The West Wing. And The West Wing was really like a shot in the arm for his career.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
And they also make an Apocalypse Now joke, which I didn't catch the first time, but I caught this time. But yeah, I mean, he's just so bad. He's just so over the top in this. I'm just like, I don't know what you're doing here. Did you just, did you have another wing on your house you needed to pay for, or what?
IRS coming after him?
Yeah. But now apparently, though, after he had accepted the part, he was telling his grandson about it, and his grandson turned out to be a huge fan of the comic. So that was another reason for him to stick with the role, was because he wanted to, show off for his grandson. And then I get that too. That's, I think Tommy Lee Jones had a similar thing with Two-Face. He was mostly doing it. He was mostly doing it because his kid or his grandkid was a big fan of Two-Face.
So he just did it for
basically, yeah. And Michael Jai White in this, this was, the first thing I'd ever seen, and he wonder how much this set back his career, because I don't think he really did anything again until Black Dynamite of note.
He was in Dark Knight, believe it or not.
Well, yeah, he was in Dark Knight, but that was a small thing, right? It was just a small one.
Sure.
But I'm talking about where he was the lead character or something like that.
Yeah, I don't. It was mostly what would be direct to streaming movies.
Right,
I guess bad direct to streaming movies now, because they were direct to DVD back then, if anybody's old enough to remember that. But he was done Bronze Tiger a couple times. I think he did on Arrow, C-Dub. Yeah. And then I think is he Bronze Tiger and Soul of the Dragon? Have you seen that one?
Yeah. We covered that. We covered that last year, I think, or 2 years ago.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So he's done some stuff since then, but yeah, There was rumors. There might still be talks of a revital, a reboot of the Spawn franchise, and Jamie Foxx is attached to it or whatever.
Yeah.
And somebody asked Michael Jai White about it. He's like, what do you think? That I was like, what do you think about them bringing it back? He's like, why? It was like that's how much of an impression it made on him, I guess.
Well, yeah, he said that it was a really good script, and he said the original cut of the movie was actually much better, but then they gave the director more power, and then he wanted to more control over it, and then he wanted to make all these changes, and that's why we got what we got, which was, utter dog shit. He said the original cut of the movie was actually more character driven. It was much less focused on the action and the effect shots, but when they gave the director more control, he wanted to add in more effect shots and cut back on the character stuff. Yeah, which goes to show you why this director has only done direct to video stuff before and after this.
Yeah. We see what you did with the budget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm surprised by how much money it made.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's it was a tentpole movie. There wasn't a lot of competition that year, but also, it had I remember at the time, the special effects, we thought they were amazing. Like, we thought the whole CGI cape and all that, we thought it was amazing back in 1997. Looking back now, it is definitely not amazing.
It's not aged well.
No, God, oh God, no. And I think the best comparison is when you look at the scenes with Violator, because there are two types of Violators in this movie. There's one where they use like practical effects, like puppetry and all that. Those look pretty damn good. And then when you see it, the CGI Violator, it looks like a bad PlayStation cutscene. It looks terrible.
Yeah. It was rough. It was. I guess I'm really glad that I saw it, in 2022 versus 97, because I would be just as fired up as everybody else. Man. There's something else who I asked you to do.
Well, I do want to mention, speaking of, because I caught this when I was watching it last night, and I made sure to look her up. But the actress who plays the reporter, did you recognize her?
No.
Okay, so that's Rabia LaMorte. Were you a Buffy guy back in the day?
Yes.
She played Miss Calendar in the first 2 seasons of Buffy.
Really?
Yeah. Because I'm staring at her on the screen. I'm like, I know this actress. And I looked her up after, and it's Rabia LaMorte.
Wow. I didn't make 2. I'm watching Angel right now too. So I didn't even. Oh, okay. I didn't even make 2. I didn't even see 2 and 2
and this came out, I think, the same year that Buffy debuted, actually, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, so man, she had a full year then.
Yeah, she was busy that year. But yeah, some other things. Talking about some of the things about this. What did you think of the Spawn suit? Because that's like the big visual thing about him in the comics is the suit and the makeup design and all that on him.
It was a product of its time, that's for sure. And it might be just 2022 eyes with little, like, giving some grace. I didn't think the cape was terrible.
It was terrible.
The suit itself didn't feel as egregious. Like I actually didn't mind it. I didn't think it was too bad.
I thought one of the nice little things they added to it was they tried to make it look organic. Right. And I think that, and like, it's not a great suit, but I think that really, I appreciated the effort they put into it to try and make it look organic, but also still fit in with the aesthetic of the comic. And I thought the mask looked pretty good.
I like that. I did like the mask.
It's only on for like 5 minutes the entire damn movie, but it still looked good when it was there.
Right. Was there a reason why? Did you find out a reason why they had the mask on so little? Or
I guess
they really wrote around it.
Yeah, I guess it was just for practical reasons, right? Because if you have the mask on with the glowing eyes, it's hard for the actor to emote at all. So I think that might be the reason why is the only thing I can, because it obviously wasn't about showing Michael Jai White's face, because A, he wasn't a big name at the time, and B, he's covered in, makeup, burn makeup for most of the movie.
Right. So yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know if you had any ideas on it. That's a good answer. It's a good answer.
And I thought that the burn effects looked decent enough on him. Although from what I recall in the comic books, it wasn't so much that he was burned, but it was more just like he was a rotting corpse is what I think
that's what I thought it was. Yeah. That's what I thought it was. Why did it? Okay. Again, it's been a long time since I've read these comics. Mm-hmm. The gentleman who ends up his best friend who ends up marrying his wife after he dies.
Oh yeah, Terry.
Was Terry, thank you. Wasn't he black in the comics?
Yeah, he was. And in fact, 1997 thinking, folks, all right? But they were worried that if they had a black guy play Terry, that there would be too many black actors in the movie and audiences would think this is a movie for black people. And it's not a movie for general audience. Is the thinking. And I know I can see your face and I know you're counting in your head. How many black actors were actually in this movie? There were 3 in the movie. you had Michael Jai White, you had the actors who played Wanda, and you had the actors who played Cyan. And that was it. Teresa Randall, who played Wanda, and then Cyan was played by Sydney Beaudoin. And that was it. Those were the only main black actors in the movie. And they thought if we added a 4th in there, that would be too much.
Well, call the Source Award.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Wow. It was, oh my gosh. Well, we can't have a black movie, can we? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. It is. Yeah. We're still almost 20 years away from Black Panther, I guess. Mm-hmm. So, and then his face is covered. His face was covered up the whole movie.
You can't even really tell. Yeah, he's only black for like 5 minutes.
Right. Then he's and then there's been progress. There's been progress.
Well, yeah. I mean, you mentioned Black Panther. You look at that, and there's 2 white guys in the entire movie.
Right. Perfect.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out why they even cast White in this movie, because the whole reason you would cast Michael Jai White at this point in his career would be presumably for his martial arts skills, but he only gets to use like 2 kicks in the whole movie. So it doesn't seem like you're really showing off you're not hiring him really for those skills. You're definitely not hiring him for his acting skills, because he doesn't really do a lot. He just basically growls throughout the entire movie.
Right. It's I wonder, because it was, like you said, it was a tentpole movie, and maybe it was just one of those things where we're trying to find a diamond in the rough, like in Star Wars, Mark Hamill, that kind of get,
Yeah.
And yeah, if they had maybe used him to his full, of what he was good at, then maybe at least Wesley Snipes dodged this one.
Yeah. Another thing is I had some issues with the whole storyline. Like, first, the structure of the story. We waste all this time with him in his human life before, and like the acts, and then the assassination attempt and all that. And I think what the comic did that I think was really smart is it opens up with him 5 years later, waking up as Spawn and having very little memory of his life before that. And I think that would have been a much more interesting way to structure this story, is if you just start off with him as Spawn and having that amnesia and trying to put the pieces of his life back together,
as we discover along with him on what's going on and stuff like that. Yeah. And that would have made and honestly, that would have made the reveal that he's black, worth it. Because in the comics, if I'm not mistaken, you find out that he's black because he uses his powers to, if I'm not mistaken, he uses his powers to transform into a human form, and he turns into his blonde hair, blue-eyed white guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that does happen. Although by that point in the comics, we've already known he's black.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that was a big thing. Like, every time he found out he could use his powers to change his appearance, but every time he tried to make himself look like a normal guy, he kept changing into this same blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy.
Right. And I'm surprised they didn't play with that some. That would have added something to it anyway.
Well, I mean, I think it's because that would be something to deal with character, and obviously this director wasn't interested in anything to do with character.
Fair enough. My bad. My bad.
Yeah, another thing that I couldn't figure out why they did it this way was the whole idea of Cagliostro training him, because it doesn't seem like Cagliostro tells him anything useful that actually helps him in the final battle, because he seems pretty adept with his powers before Cagliostro's whole training thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the most creative uses of his powers are when he tries to attack Jason at that benefit, right? He turns his hands into the suction cup. He's using the cape to fly around. He's able to control all these aspects of his suit. He's able to use the cape to camouflage himself. He's able to do all these different things with the suit. And then after, he goes and he trains with Cagliostro, and he doesn't really learn anything new. So it just seemed like a really weird way to construct that.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense at all. Now that you put it that way, I really don't have anything to add. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, that character, he just seems like a very pointless addition to this movie overall, because he does that really bad voiceover at the beginning, which is unnecessary. His training stuff is unnecessary. The explanations he's given are also unnecessary, because we can get all this information through Clown or through other means. We don't need Cagliostro in this movie at all.
Is he in the comics?
He is. And if I'm recalling correctly, he was a pretty minor character in the comics.
So it was just an unnecessary addition to this movie.
Basically, yeah.
Pretty much.
Another unnecessary addition is that little homeless kid in the alley.
Yeah, I didn't quite get what the whole point of that whole thing was.
I mean, yeah, because it's like you have the humanizing element with when Spawn develops a relationship with Cyan already, so you don't need it with this random kid. Another thing I thought, and I think it's just that this is just 90s thinking. In the 80s and the 90s, studios were obsessed with this idea that if you want kids to see the movie, you have to have a kid in the movie. And obviously, little white boys can't relate to little black girls, so we have to have a little white boy in the movie instead, is what I think the thinking was. And I don't know, speaking for me, because I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, I never related to the little white kid in the movies. Like, I always thought that kid was annoying as shit, with the exception of Short Round. Short Round was the one exception. All the other ones, I always hated those kids. I didn't care about, the little kid sidekick. I wanted to be the hero in the movie.
Right. And that's how I felt during, well, of course, they didn't look like me, but that's who you want to be. Indiana Jones. You don't want to be Short Round. I didn't. Yeah. Looking back, I mean, it's not something I had thought about until I became an adult, but that doesn't make any sense. It's it's like the Scrappy Doo syndrome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, well, let's stick the little one in there, but it's not nearly as popular as the focal point or the person who's there to see.
Right.
What purpose? What is there any other like story purposes that they usually?
Not that I can think of. Like I said, the only time I've ever liked a kid sidekick was Short Round. He was the only one that I liked, and that was more because of that actor was just, he had great comic timing. Other than that, they've always been really irritating. So I don't know what it is. I think it's just they felt that we have to, and they even back in the Super Friends cartoon, remember they had Wendy and Marvin on that, and that was another way because we have to have a point of view character that the kids can relate to.
Right, like we did. Like I wanted to be Batman. Who are these? Who are these cats, man? I want to be Batman. I want to be Superman or whoever. Yeah, do they have focus groups or something?
They've got to. I don't know. Maybe it's focus grouped or something. I don't know. But whatever the case, it was always, at least for me, I never, and I don't know. Someone out there may have been like, "Hey, I actually really related to that little kid," and whatever. Okay, never worked for me. It never did anything for me though.
Yeah. Well, not in this. The one in this movie did.
Definitely not in this movie. No. God, that kid was just a waste of space.
A bit, yeah. Jeez Louise.
Let's see. What other things about this movie? the CGI in the hell scene was just, oh, that was just so bad. It's like, and when you have, the thing I don't get is I can understand you have to use CGI on the Violator's action scenes because he's doing all these things. Malbolgia is not doing anything but standing there. So why do you have to CGI him? Why can't you just use practical effects for that?
And this, what throws me about, like, especially something like that is, was it ILM? Is that those initials? Yeah, ILM were the was the group that did Terminator 2. They did Jurassic Park. So they had really talented people. You know what I mean? Like how do you fumble the bag that bad?
You know what I think it is? I think it's because it depends a lot on the director who's involved, because with Jurassic Park and with Terminator 2, you know, James Cameron and Steven Spielberg, they understood the limitations of the technology. And also those movies came, to be fair too, those movies came out, you know, earlier than this, right? Terminator 2 was 92, I believe, and Jurassic Park was 93. So the CGI using computers for everything was not as advanced at that point. So there was a much more concern for having to do practical effects as well. By this point, CGI had developed to the point where they could have everything CGI in the movie. And I think a big part of it was two things. One, it was, you know, the director didn't have the foresight to think, you know, we need to have some more practical effects in here. And two, I think it's the thing that, you know, it's the new toy. We all want to play with it type of thing.
Kind of like shaky cam.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God, yeah. God, don't remind me about shaky cam. That was one of the worst advancements ever.
Advancements in scare quotes.
Yeah. Paul Greengrass, like, I don't know, he built like his entire goddamn career on shaky cam scenes. And I remember watching the last two Bourne movies and just like getting motion sick while I was watching them.
Yeah, I think I only watched the first one of that, but yeah, anytime I see it, it really gives me, I can't even play. But one of the reasons I'm not a gamer, I know these aren't the only games, but one of the reasons I stopped gaming is because of because so many people started playing first person shooters, and I get motion sickness.
Oh, right.
So like, yeah, shaky cam, I'm like, what is happening? Like, stop that. Like, it'll give me a headache. It's bleh.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of first person shooters for that. I don't get motion sick when I'm watching it, when I'm playing them, but I do. It doesn't feel it's not as immersive for me as the third person ones are.
Yeah,
which is what annoys me about Cyberpunk, because there's no third person option for that. It's all first person.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah,
I played the role playing, like the pen and paper role playing game of Cyberpunk 2020, which came out in like 89, I think. But yeah, that makes me sad. Well, reason to get back into gaming then.
If you're looking for Cyberpunk content, though, they got a Netflix series coming out soon, an animated series,
really
set in the world. Yeah.
Ooh, that's exciting. I'll have to write that.
It's like Cyberpunk Edge Runners or something like that, I think it's called.
Oh, okay. Right on. That okay, cool. Yeah, I'm at the.
It looks pretty cool. I saw the trailer a few days ago. It looks pretty cool.
When's that supposed to come out?
I'm not sure, actually. Look it up later. We'll talk later afterwards. But yeah, going back to the movie, the hell effects are just so bad. There's not much else to say about it than that. But yeah, I mean, it's not like, even by the low standards I have for what a Spawn movie should be, like, this is just not that good. I'm trying to think about stuff I like. I like John Leguizamo for the most part in this. He's the only thing. Although if the script had been better, I think his performance would be irritating. But because the script is so bad, he ends up being the best thing in it.
Yeah, that's not even close. Another good thing we can talk about with this movie is the soundtrack.
Oh yeah,
the soundtrack was way what. I don't know if comparatively speaking, but it was better received than the movie.
Oh, definitely. In fact, it won some awards, I believe.
And it was on the Billboard charts for like 6 months, which is unusual, especially for a soundtrack back then, because I think it was a few years and it starts soundtracks started to become a bigger part of the whole marketing package, if you will, of
I
movies.
remember Batman Forever soundtrack. I remember being really up there for a while. I remember that being talked about a lot back in the day. So that would have been like 2 years before this.
Okay, so yeah, and then the one that I remember that at least for me paying attention to it anyway, that started that off. Do you remember the movie Juice?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
The soundtrack was much more popular than the actual movie. Although the movie's good. I enjoyed the movie. I haven't seen it in a while, so I will. So I may reserve judgment if it's bad now. But
this isn't quite the same example because the movie was really good too. But the Crow soundtrack, that was another one that was really well received and was really popular.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I believe it might have been the Batman soundtrack, the 89 version that really kind of started, because the big thing about that was Prince was doing the soundtrack.
Yes. As soon as you said Batman, I was like, yeah, that's right. Prince did that whole thing, which I thought it was weird at the time because
well, that was kind of an outlier even at the time, wasn't it? That to have such a big focus on the soundtrack.
And Prince was a huge name at that point, and, for him to do the whole album was unheard. I don't want to say unprecedented, but it was unheard of for that time period, and he did the whole deal.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that we also had another change in the comic books, because in the comics, the assassin that kills Al isn't Jessica Priest. She was a character created for the movie. In the comics, it was Chapel from Rob Liefeld's Youngblood comics, because back when Image was launched, they were doing the whole shared universe thing. So Chapel was responsible for killing Al Simmons, and they couldn't use him in this because Liefeld had the rights. Although I guess they were able to work something out because they did use Chapel in the HBO animated series.
I do remember that, which was way better. I think it's on HBO Max. If you want to get your Spawn fix, watch that on HBO Max. And they introduced Jessica Priest into the comics later, didn't they?
That's what I read. Like, I think at the point I'm reading, they hadn't introduced her yet, but I did read in the trivia last night that they later introduced her in the comics too.
I want to say it was do I have it written down? Yeah, it was issue 61 is when they introduced her, and then kind of developed her into the lore. I guess that's the right word.
Yeah, I'm just looking it up now. It looks like she becomes a Spawn herself too, actually.
Ooh.
But yeah, you're right. Spawn number 61. That's when she got introduced into the comics. Yeah, I mean, she's one of those characters in the movie. Like, her and Wynn are annoying just because they're evil just to be evil. That's the only
right.
They have no real reason to do any of this stuff. I mean, like, Jason's developing this biological weapon that can wipe out all of humanity. For what purpose? Like, I get why. I mean, I don't even really get why Clown and Malbolgia want to do it too, because I don't see how destroying humanity really accomplishes their goals. So,
and this just popped in my head when they set it up where, like, they operate on Wynn, and his heart is connected to the bomb, basically. If his heart stops beating, the bomb goes off. After they said, I'm like, why is he excited about this? That doesn't make any sense. Like, wait a minute. So he could just die on accident and then it goes. I couldn't wrap my head around that.
Because I know why Clown's doing it. Because Clown's doing it because he wants to trigger the virus. But it doesn't make any sense because, Wynn seems to think, he's like, oh, well, if I have the bomb, then Spawn won't kill me, is what his thinking is. But Spawn doesn't fucking know. It's like it never registers to him that, oh, he doesn't know that if he kills me, all these people are going to die until the very end. Then he says it. And it's just, it's such flawed logic. I'm like, why would you put yourself in that position?
And somebody who is supposed to be, you have to be intelligent to rise to those. Well, theoretically, you would
Theoretically.
be have some kind of intelligence, or if nothing else,
I
cunning
mean,
to get yourself into that position, and then for some,
Mike Pompeo
it
was
just
the CIA director, so I think that kind of nicks that idea.
yeah, that's why I paused. I was like, well, maybe not. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, just that was the one thing that I remember sticking out. I was just like, wait, what?
Yeah,
I don't understand.
it's such that's like the biggest plot hole in the movie is that that and just like the whole. Oh, another thing they mentioned is, and this is something they brought in the comics, the fact that if Spawn uses too much of his powers, he'll go straight back to hell. Okay.
Right.
Now, even in the comics, I never quite understood that, because I'm like, well, why do you have that option, right? Because the whole thing is Spawn doesn't want to be like, why are you? It just makes no sense. It doesn't seem like any. I don't understand how that benefits Malbolgia to put Spawn on Earth and give him these powers, and then but if you use the powers too much, then you come back to hell. I'm like, but you had him in hell anyway in the first place. Why do you have to? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it makes even less sense in the movie, because Cagliostro tells him, if you use too much of their powers, you die and you go back to hell. But it's never mentioned again. It has no impact on the story whatsoever. It doesn't stop Spawn from using his powers, because he's still using his powers all the fucking time. So there's no reason for it.
And they never, they never meant you like you said, they never mention it again. There's no drama about him getting drained, or the what I like again, I'm starting to remember more things from the comics. The comics had a timer.
Yeah.
And every time we saw him use his powers, or periodically after a fight scene or whatever, they would show the timer going down until he's supposed to go back to hell again, which was
right.
Doesn't make any sense.
Mm.
But yeah,
but at least there was a feeling of some kind of stakes involved with the timer.
Right. There was an indication something was going to go down.
Yeah. Well, and also in the comics, that's why he loads up on the weaponry, because he knows if he uses his powers, they'll deplete too much, he'll go back to hell. So he doesn't. So that's why he picks up all the guns and stuff. But in this movie, he gets all the guns before Cagliostro tells him about the timer. So it doesn't even serve a purpose in that way, in that most basic sense.
Yeah, it's almost like and sometimes I wonder if these directors who get nowadays they do, but it seems like the directors who get some of these properties don't even read the source material, or like take a lot of time to read the source material to figure out how things work together. This wasn't the first or the last to do that, but this seems really egregious.
Yeah. And it's weird because Todd McFarlane fought for creative control in this. He had creative control, and I don't. I remember interviews as I was rewatching this movie. I remember interviews he was doing back then, and him saying things in interviews like, "I want people to watch this movie, then come out of it thinking Batman is shit," and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, dude, you've got like the most popular independent comic of all time. Why do you have a chip on your shoulder about not being as big as Batman? Chill the fuck out.
And he had a toy line, which was amazing. I remember seeing the toys. They were so detailed, so amazing.
I think probably the only independent comic that could rival Spawn in terms of longevity and popularity is the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, that's it. It's one in 1A or whatever.
Yeah. So well, and there's also a lot of talk about what would happen in a sequel, because a sequel was in development hell for a long time with this.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Jai White was still attached to come back, like even as early as the 2000s, as late as the mid late aughts. He was saying that if there's a sequel, he'll still do it.
Wow.
So he was still attached to it for a while, and then only recent. And McFarlane kept saying, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do the sequel. We're gonna do the sequel. It's gonna focus on Sam and Twitch, who we see at the end of this movie in just that brief cameo." Which is, again, it's weird because they were such a big part of those early issues. Right.
Why weren't they? I was about to mention Sam and Twitch because I couldn't remember exactly where they were. I read they were in the movie. I couldn't remember like where they were.
Yeah.
They were right at the end.
Yeah, they're right. They're the ones who are escorting Wynn out of the house.
Got it. on the nose.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also the whole thing about, I think if you're gonna do a Spawn movie, I think you really should set it up as like a series. Like you shouldn't go full on with Malbolgia and Violator in the first. Yeah, have Clown there as like, this annoying, antagonist type of thing, but not like the main villain. And it shouldn't even be Wynn. Wynn should be like a background character. But you should focus on something else. Like the comics had all these, like they had the whole thing with the mob stuff that was going on. You had the serial killer, Billy Kincaid, all of that stuff, which was handled really well in the animated series.
Yeah,
But there's so many other things you can do that gives you a better chance to explore his character and his new world before you start going into the whole stuff with heaven and hell and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that. I'm watching Angel, so I'll use that as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Joss Whedon has a thing with his seasons where you'll right around the middle of the season, like episode 9, 10 or something like that. That's when they introduce the big bad. Like there's a couple, monsters of the week, or there's somebody, there's your Wolfram and Hart. They're kind of always there, but then they have the big bad, like, oh my, the world-ending threat, and that's something they could have introduced. Like they were talking, I would assume they would have been talking trilogy. So you have your first movie with the mob stuff, the more street level stuff, you use Marvel parlance or whatever, and then go into introducing the bigger and the higher stakes, and introduce all the grander, bigger world of Spawn.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, any of that stuff would have been made far more sense.
Yeah, but we got this instead.
I don't know. Anything else we want to say about this piece of shit?
One thing that just tickled me to no end, and I'm not really sure why, but the fact that Scooby-Doo is the bad guy in this movie, it just tickled me to no end.
Oh, that's the voice of
Malbolgia. That's Frank Welker.
Which is funny because he looks like a hairless dog in this movie. Just like the CGI on him is so bad. It's just so terrible.
It was rough, but it was one of those things like, well, okay, that was an hour and a half of my life I can't get back, but you know what? I promised Perry I would watch.
Yeah. Remember, you did this to yourself.
Yes, and I deserve all the punishment that
I will say this. Whenever we had when Derek was still alive and we talked about doing the black superhero movies for Black History Month, every time we was like, okay, we're not going to do, he's like, we're not doing Spawn, we're not doing Steel.
No, those are movies that set you back, man.
Yeah. He eventually did do Steel, and but we had fun with that one. But yeah, this is just, it's so bad. And like, even it feels weird saying this, but Spawn deserved better. Like it's not a good movie. And honestly, like if I was McFarlane, I would probably just sell the rights and let some director who has more talent take the creative control, because I don't think him having more creative control is the answer here.
No. Oh, there is something else. He sold the rights to Spawn to New Line for $1.
Oh, the film rights?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A freaking $1, man.
I guess that was probably in exchange for the creative control.
Yeah, probably. But I saw that, I was like, really, $1? But yeah, now that you say that makes more sense, because nothing connect. The things that I've read about it didn't connect those two, so that makes a lot more sense.
Because there were a lot of studios that were interested in adapting Spawn, but he kept turning down offers because they didn't want to give him too much creative control. And then I guess New Line finally did, and that's why he sold it so cheap to them.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
That's the only thing that I can think of. Yeah, it's not like he didn't have offers; he had plenty of offers. But yeah, more creative control is not a good thing. And no. The weird thing is, we had the animated series, like we mentioned, which is far superior. Like it's
so good,
probably even better than the comics, I'd say.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I mean, because it's really like I said, the comics, it's all about the artwork, and the writing's not that great. The writing in the HBO show, they take those elements from the comics, and just like the way they handle the atmosphere and all that, it's just handled much better in the animated series, I think.
I remember enjoying it immensely. I'm kind of spotty on my memory of this stuff, but I remember like the feeling I got from it, and I remember enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Spawn.
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
yes,
and
it was.
but also I don't think McFarlane has really learned the right lessons for this, because talking about that reboot he's talking about is he wants it to be a movie where the focus is on Sam and Twitch as the main characters, and then Spawn's going to be just like a minor background character, which feels like you're completely cutting yourself off at the knees, because people are going to see this movie because they want to see Spawn. They're not going to see the movie because they want to see, this fat detective and his thin partner.
Yeah, you'd have to introduce them first and have us fall in love with them, because the average person, and I'm like, I wouldn't have known who Sam and Twitch were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I'm a comic guy.
If you're doing a TV show, I can understand that approach. That would make sense.
Sure.
But for doing it as a movie, putting the focus on these two side characters, I think is a big mistake. So I don't know why you'd want to go down that route, but we'll see if it ever gets made, because he's been talking about this for 10 years now.
Yeah, I saw an interview that Jamie Foxx did. Mm-hmm. It was for Day Shift. Mm-hmm. And the guy interviewed him, asked him about Spawn, and he really gave a non-answer. Mm-hmm. As I listened to it, I was like, wait a minute, he's not really saying anything. But evidently, he's met with Todd McFarlane and he's seen some concepts and things like that. But there was no dates or anything of substance. And this was like a month ago. So still in the air. Yeah.
All right. Well, that does it for this. Damon, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
You can find me on all. This is really simple. You can find me on all the social medias at Damon Does on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I do I podcast, and I write bad dad jokes in haiku form every day.
Yeah, so, you do. Yeah.
if I'm not going to sit there and say that you're going to laugh, but it is something interesting to read first thing in the morning. So
it is. I will say that. I will say one more thing about Spawn, though, is so last night I get on to because it's Thursday morning when we're recording my time now. Wednesday night I've got a night class that I have to go to. So Wednesday afternoon I'm just kind of looking up on Netflix. I'm saying, because I remember this movie was on Netflix up until like a week ago. And I'm looking on Netflix and just double checking. I'm like, wait a second, it's not here. it had just gone off Netflix. So I had to go to the video store right after work, rent a copy, and then bring it home.
Oh, well, if you had to spend more money on it.
Yeah. I mean, it was only like $1, so it wasn't that bad, but still.
They've taken enough of my time.
You see, see what I do for you guys. I see what I sacrifice for you.
And on behalf of the Super Cinephile universe, or the superhero cinephile cinematic universe, there we go. We thank you. We thank you for renting Spawn to entertain the masses.
All right. All right, Damon. Well, thanks again for coming on. And that does it for this episode of Superhero Cinephiles. SuperheroCinephiles.com is the website. And we are Super Cinema Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And don't forget, you sign up for the Patreon. You get these episodes a week in advance. And you also get access to the Superhero Cinephiles Book Club companion podcast, where we talk about comic books and all that fun stuff. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Hey guys, there's just one more thing I wanted to add to this episode that I forgot to talk about, but I wanted to mention. So I just thought I'd throw it in here at the end as a little postscript. So you might be wondering, there are actually two versions of this movie. There's a theatrical cut and there is a director's cut. I believe most of what you see on streaming or on DVD or Blu-ray is the director's cut. But even if it's not, just to let you know, there's not really much difference between the two. There's some slightly extended scenes, some alternate shots in some scenes, and slightly more violence. And that's about it. Otherwise, there aren't too many differences between the director's cut and the theatrical cut. The director's cut is just like a total of maybe 2 minutes longer. So you're not looking at something like the Daredevil director's cut or anything like that. So if you were wondering, I just wanted to throw that in and let you know. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you next time. If you enjoy the Superhero Cinephiles, then you'll also love my companion podcast, the Superhero Cinephiles Book Club. All my Patreon subscribers get access to this exclusive podcast where I review superhero comics and graphic novels. Not sure what comics you want to read next or what you should dive into? I've got you covered on that. I'll be doing reviews, recommendations, and also talking to you about useful entry points if you're interested in reading some comics but don't know where you should start. Plus, you'll get access to all episodes of the main show a week before everyone else. On all of this for as little as just $1 a month. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/supercinemapod and you can sign up at any subscription amount to get started. Thanks so much for your support, and please don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.